Some games were just made to give and give and give. Today, we really want to talk about some of those. Hi, folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 games that spoiled us. Starting off with number 10, it's Red Dead Redemption 2. We've said a lot about Red Dead 2 over the years. I mean, a lot. And for good reason. It's an exemplary game that was amazing back when it came out, but actually seems even more impressive to me now than back then. In terms of open world design, they set the bar really high because arguably, even now, after the original came out, I'm not sure an open world game has been able to match in terms of detail and world design. Yeah, there's open world games that people like more or maybe have more fun with, but the attention to detail in Red Dead 2 is just beyond comparison. Nothing else has matched it. There's just so much going on at any given point, so many little details that another developer wouldn't even bother with, and so many little secrets and Easter eggs to discover, all of which of the highest absolute quality. There's a reason games like Cyberpunk 2077 got so much heat when they first came out. People were comparing the open world of that game to Red Dead 2 or Grand Theft Auto 5. And regardless about how you feel about any of it, Cyberpunk or any Rockstar game, clearly Cyberpunk came up short. It just didn't have the living, breathing world that Rockstar has managed to create, and it's actually kind of peculiar to think about given how alive Witcher 3 feels, but I have some inklings it actually has to do with deciding they were going to make a first-person game. In all honesty, putting you inside the head of the main character necessitates higher expectations, and, well, CD Projekt Red isn't Rockstar, and Red Dead 2 is the absolute height of what they've been able to create. It's so impressive that it's hard to imagine something as massive in Grand Theft Auto 6 being able to match it. And we're talking about a world where there's very little technology. I'm not so sure a modern world where the possibilities are technically much more vast is going to be able to match the detail and realism of that world. I would, of course, love to be proven wrong, but a lot of open world games have come out after RDR2, and none of them have been as meticulously detailed or feel as real as it does. At number 9 is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It might seem like an odd entry for a list like this. Kirby games are, if anything, pretty traditional games, and they rarely exceed expectations. Those expectations are high, and these games almost always meet them. They're very good games, but they're very old school by nature, and they aren't really spoiling anyone with their cutting-edge gameplay or amazing graphics. What they are spoiling us with is something that's becoming more and more rare with new games that, well, they're relatively bug-free. Generally, there's no day one patch with Kirby games. And with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, there wasn't. In fact, probably the most shocking thing of all, this game has never been patched. It is version 1.0. And this is a world where day one patches aren't just the norm, they're basically the expectation. It seems like every other game comes out plagued with glitches and performance issues, and Kirby the Forgotten Land is a true anomaly. I know, it's kind of ridiculous that we consider a game spoiling us now just for being in a state that most games should be in when they release, a finished product. But also, that's kind of where we are in games. It's not like you or me have a choice in when they release games. Pretty much everything gets patched, and that's actually not a bad thing. Patches, I think, are good. I think it's good overall that they're able to fix things after release. It does provide them with the opportunity to launch things incomplete, but still, I would rather the ability to be there than not. But to call this unusual for Kirby and the Forgotten Land to launch at 1.0 and stay at 1.0, it kind of almost feels wrong. Like, the devs must have abandoned the game. It's just a mess. But no, Kirby is fine. It's not perfect in terms of performance, but it's a Switch game. So, I don't know what anybody really expects out of a Switch game. Certainly not 1080p 60 frames per second on a newer title. Now, like I said, I will take a patched game over one that's forever broken. Cyberpunk 2077, No Man's Sky, these are good games now, and they didn't launch in a state that I would consider purely good. But wow, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, man. Good job, devs. And number 8 is Skyrim. Now, unlike RDR, Skyrim doesn't have the best graphics, and unlike Kirby, wow, I don't think we need to say anything about the game being finished or bug-free. I don't think any Bethesda game will ever be finished and bug-free, at least as long as they stay on that damn creation engine. But that's not why we talk about Skyrim. And in truth, it's not even just the base game why we talk about Skyrim. The thing that really spoils us is the amazing support the game's received from the community. The massive unofficial fan patches, to graphics mods, to total conversions that completely changed the game. Skyrim is one of the best games to own on PC for the mods alone. It's easy to give credit to the community for being so dedicated to the game that they created all these odds in the first place, but Bethesda actually kind of deserves some pretty major kudos for making modding possible and supporting the modding community. And even that isn't perfect. There have been some pretty big missteps in terms of Bethesda and mods. I mean, they've always been welcoming of it with open hands, just not always for the best reasons. Like when they tried to monetize fan mods on consoles. But in general, just the enthusiasm over the modding community that the studio shows is a positive more than a negative. They created the toolkit that allows the game to be easily modified and made it available to everybody. The studio didn't have to do that, and most other developers don't. But they did, and that makes Skyrim a much better game because they know where its bread and butter is in that mod community. Starfield just came out, and even though the editing tools haven't been officially released by Bethesda, the game is already getting a ton of mods. And in the long run, it could be an even better platform for modding than Skyrim was. So few games allow modding. Like, as much credit as Rockstar deserves for other reasons, they constantly cause problems for their modding community. So when a developer completely embraces it the way that Bethesda has, it can feel like they're spoiling us. And number 7 is Baldur's Gate 3. This is one massive game, but what makes it so unique is how interactive it is, with quests that can go in wildly divergent directions depending on how you play them. There are certain elements of this game that a fraction of the player base is ever even going to see. And in defiance of most other games that try to get players to experience as much content as possible, Larian, the developers of the game, don't seem to mind that very few people are ever going to see those things. What makes a truly great RPG is the fact that those scenes are in the game at all. A lot of other developers use player metrics to decide what to focus on and what to cut out, and that's made for a lot of games where it feels like your choices don't really matter. But Baldur's Gate 3 bucks that trend entirely.
To your very good health.
You perceive a faint hint of cloth grass, a herb that is said to elicit the truth. Jaheira smiles at you knowingly.
It doesn't spoil the taste, if that's what you're wondering.
What's even more impressive about it is the fidelity of everything. Like, every character is voiced, and it's extremely impressive how even the most inconsequential dialogue has been motion captured. It's not just a bunch of generic hand motions, they actually look like they took the time to voice every line, but also animate every line, which is not only beyond what you see in computer RPGs in general, but outside of very linear cinematic games of any kind. There's an attention to detail in this game that just trounces other games. It's not perfect, it's got its fair share of bugs, and the last act is seen as disappointing to some people, although I'm not so sure I agree with them. But the overall package is just, it's so good that a lot of people fear we won't get another RPG that's as good as this one for a pretty long time. And they're I don't know, maybe right. It might also just be unnecessary hand-wringing, I don't know. You almost never see games that are a hardcore RPG with AAA production levels from top to bottom. You get one or the other, never both. And Baldur's Gate 3 is both. And number 6 is Stardew Valley. Compared to a lot of other games on this list, it's a kind of a more modest success. It's a Harvest Moon spiritual successor, primarily made by one guy named Eric Barone, also known as Concerned Ape. He did everything. He programmed it, created the art, music, the whole thing. It's all one person, Eric Barone. That's a huge accomplishment on its own, but what's especially impressive is that the game is actually really, really good. And yes, I characterized its success as maybe a little more modest than the previous games, but in its own right, it's still a massive success. To me, what makes it feel like this game spoiled us isn't in its initial release, but the fairly shocking amount of post-launch content. This game, along with other indie darlings like Terraria, has really set a new bar for indie game updates. The prevailing knowledge before games like this was to release a game, patch it up to a decent state, then move on. It was considered kind of a waste to continuously update a game, because in terms of sales, that's diminishing returns. Only subscription-based games or ones with constant DLC and microtransactions would get that kind of support. Stardew and games like it showed that a game, even a single-player one, could be profitable for years at the initial release date just by releasing a steady stream of updates which improve the game. Why? Because it continually gets new people interested in it because there's always news about it. Obviously, if every single person on the face of the earth bought the game, it probably wouldn't continue to keep the game profitable, but I don't even know if it would be important. But the update history on this game just goes on forever. It has seen so many upgrades and free edition, it almost feels like a different game now. The amount of new stuff they've added over the years is just absolutely staggering, and so many games just nickel and dime us for every little thing. It's really refreshing to see a game come along where you get nearly a sequel's worth of content for free, and it keeps the game alive in a way that doesn't come off as predatory or greedy. At number 5 is Marvel's Spider-Man. By 2018, we knew what to expect with superhero games. It was just understood. If you wanted costumes, you were just gonna have to pay for them. Every open world game out there was just charging for cosmetics up the wazoo at the time. You get maybe 3 or 4 free ones as a pittance, but everything else you were paying for. Everyone rags on the Avengers game for this sort of thing, but basically every game was doing it. Everybody wants to play dress up with the superheroes, so a lot of games just knew that they could get you to pay for it. So when Marvel's Spider-Man came out, it felt like they were really spoiling us by giving us so many costumes for free just in the game. There wasn't a currency you had to earn. There wasn't a battle pass you had to grind. You just got them from tokens that you got from gameplay, like playing the game. Just that. Doesn't take you hundreds of hours of grinding. Hell, it doesn't even really take that long, period. And it feels really wrong. That's how messed up our brains were at the time. When a game would show you this big list of unlockables, you'd be like, well, I'm locked out of a lot of this because I'm not going to buy it. And that's not how this game is. And even though that's how everything should work, it felt like the game was spoiling us. This is actually one aspect of the gaming industry that has improved a lot over the last few years. A lot of single-player games are just a lot more generous with the costumes than they were in the previous generation, and it's probably all because of Spider-Man. I don't have evidence to back that up, but this is such a well-loved game that was hugely successful and very profitable. It makes sense to copy their formula.
Seriously, what did I get? Don't say hi to my kid.
Thanks. They adore you.
And number 4 is Jak and Daxter. Might sound a little random, but stick with me here. Back in the PS1, PS2 era, loading screens were a fact of life. Hell, even now with SSDs and infinitely faster loading and streaming abilities, the loading screen is still fairly common. What made the original Jak and Daxter so unique is that it was devoid of loading screens. After the initial startup, you'd never see another loading screen for the entire game. Things like portals were instantaneous, you could seamlessly run from the final area of the game to the very start, and you'd never lose control of your character. Naughty Dog has always been known for their technical prowess. Famously, they pushed the original PlayStation hardware further than they were supposed to be allowed to. And this is just one more example of that. GTA 3 and Vice City, those still had loading screens between islands. At the time, streaming was still a really new concept. These days, nearly every game streams content dynamically depending on the circumstances, but that hasn't eliminated loading or anything. And this is a 20-year-old game. It came out when loading was, more normal than it is now. It must have been a shock for people who had this as their first game, like going to any other game. Had to have been infuriating. Loading times are a lot better now than they used to be fair. It's like night and day compared to the old PS2 days. But Jak and Daxter still has a lot of modern games beat in how seamless it is. And number 3 is Hollow Knight. In a world where AAA games sell for $70 and the smallest indie games sell for $30, Hollow Knight's humble $14.99 price tag is a steal. When I bought this game back in 2017, the day it came out, it wasn't even on Steam's front page. It had 0 reviews, and I saw that $15 price tag and the animation. I thought, 3-hour game, kind of an indie Metroid style game, and I was not correct about that. I was correct that it was cool. I identified that from the video content streaming off the page, but wow, it's one of the best Metroidvanias out there. It stands toe-to-toe with some of the greats like Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, and Super Metroid. In pure content terms, the game is so much bigger than its contemporaries. It can take 30 hours. 30 freaking hours. And that's before all the completely free DLC. Hollow Knight does everything you want in an exploration action game, but with more. Like, there's more bosses, bigger areas, better secrets than almost any of its competitors. And it's cheaper than your average Call of Duty skin bundle. It's a game that set the new bar for quality for these types of games, and not one that I really think anybody has beaten since. At number 2 is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Ultra Hand, it's so versatile and powerful. It's just a next-gen power that feels light years ahead of what most other games are doing, and it's on the frickin' Switch. Like, it feels like there's gonna have to be a catch the first time you use it. Like, it's only gonna work on certain things. It only attach certain surfaces. Yeah, that's what you're thinking. Yeah, it can't possibly be all-encompassing in the way that they're advertising it. And, to call this thing a game changer is an understatement. It is a remarkable tool, and it completely changes how players approach the game. Like, there are people who say that Tears of the Kingdom is too samey with Breath of the Wild, and I think that those are the people who just have not gotten deep enough into the mechanics of Tears of the Kingdom yet to truly understand why the game exists. I don't know if I even can explain it. It's a power you get right at the start of the game. You can pick up objects and glue them together. That's the gist of it. But that is not an adequate explanation for it. Like, you can stick trees together to cross a gap. You can build a makeshift vehicle. The construction possibilities in this game are absolutely nuts, and people have made the most insane crap with this thing. And like, okay, so there's other games with building mechanics, but they have never been seamless in the way that this is. In most games, you're forced into an alternate menu to do anything like building and combining, but here you grab an object, slap it against another object, and that's it. It's extremely intuitive and easy to do. How they got all these physics effects to work like this on the Switch, it feels like black magic. The Ultra Hand, it's one of these things that just feels light years ahead of everything else out there. And finally, at number 1 is PT. Now, it feels bizarre to say this, but there are so many people that played PT, the playable teaser that Konami put out in 2014, exclusively on the PlayStation, and we were forever spoiled for other horror games. This single little teaser, meant to get everybody excited about a Silent Hill game that never came out, ended up being one of the most influential horror games of all time. In fact, you know what? It's one of the best pieces of horror media of all time. It's so genuinely scary in a way that few horror games, or really, again, all horror media, ever actually is. And in a good way. Like, there are some things that scare me that I'm like, alright, cool. I didn't really need that. But PT does it in a way that is unique. And it does so with this relatively basic setup that results in some really amazing things. The game has since been delisted and it's kind of hard to play, so it's also achieved a weird kind of folklore status. So many games have tried to be PT, but nothing's really managed to do it. It's a testament to how brilliant Kojima and the various designers, artists, and programmers were that worked on PT. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.